Good morning, everybody. Glad to be back with you this Saturday morning. My name is Ed Samuel. I'm a career coach with a firm called Sam Nova. We're based in Kennett Square, Pennsylvania, and serve clients in the greater Philadelphia area and across the U.S. You know, this is such an unusual time, and I hope and pray that you and your family are safe in the midst of this pandemic. The good news is some lights finally emerging in terms of the economy coming back. Businesses are finally reopening, and I know many have landed or are now interviewing for employment. You know, that's some really good news. But, you know, this morning I wanted to touch on something that's not new necessarily, but something worth reviewing every so often. And it has to do with the common mistakes that recruiters are making when it comes to helping people in a job search. And it's really across the board. For those who might be new to this program or they don't understand my background, you know, I've been blessed to have had quite a bit of a recruiting experience. You know, I worked for third-party recruiting firms, nationally known, and smaller franchise recruiting operations. I also had the opportunity to work for one of the best retained privately held search firms in the U.S. I've also led the internal recruiting for a billion-dollar medical device concern with a large team of internal recruiters for several years. So, in fact, I even give talks about the good, the bad, and the ugly of recruiting. And I will say, of all the topics I'm asked to talk about, this always comes up as within the top five when it comes to this whole notion of recruiters and recruiting. That's in addition to my 29 years of corporate experience in several major industries and 10 years now as a career coach running my own practice. So I think I have a unique view of recruiting in a number of ways. So I'm well versed in it because I've been one. But, you know, in the midst of this COVID-19 period that we're in, and people are trying to get back to work, I'm hearing more and more mistakes that are being made by recruiters. Frustrations are high. And I'm not saying recruiters have it easy, but it drives me crazy when I hear about just basic recruiting errors that are being made and the angst that it creates with people who are trying to, you know, get back to work. I'm not trying to make a broad brush that all recruiters are not doing a good job. I know many recruiters. Feels like I know hundreds. And there are some really good recruiters out there. And look, I'm not perfect and nobody is, but there is some fundamentals to the recruiting profession that when they're not being done well, it just creates angst. And it's a bad reflection on the recruiting profession. It's a bad reflection on the company they're recruiting for. And you have to I scratch my head a little bit saying, who's training these recruiters? Who's overseeing these recruiters? And who's mentoring these recruiters? And who's testing these recruiters or challenging the recruiters when mistakes are being made? So, you know, this morning I'm going to talk about really what I would consider 13 mistakes that are often being made, you know, by recruiters. And you could almost take these 13 areas and create your own checklist. So when you're engaging a recruiter, you know, are they, you know, living up to your expectations as a recruiter? Not just you as a candidate living up to their expectations because you want to get the job, but it goes in both directions in terms of holding some people accountable here in a two-way, you know, level of respect and communication. So that's a little bit of context of why I chose this topic this morning. And so here we go. We're going to kind of walk through these. Now, I try to put them in some order so they make some logical sense. But here's a mistake that I see happening. And I saw it happen many, many times in the last 30 days with not just my own clients, but with the hundreds of people I get to talk to and hear from. And it goes like this. The recruiter is recruiting for a job they have not qualified. In other words, they have not qualified the job with the hiring manager well. See, look, you know, in the end, if the hiring manager writes up something and they send it off to the recruiter, the recruiting team, and I don't care if it's a third party, I don't care if it's retained, continuous, I don't care what it is, internal. The recruiter has a responsibility to qualify a job. This is the basic of recruiting, getting the job qualified. And what do I mean by that? Qualification is many things, but one of them is, what's the bare minimum requirements for this job? Now, look, if you're recruiting in pharmaceutical and you're looking for a financial planning and analysis person, and you have to ask the hiring manager, is having pharmaceutical experience, is it a must? And if it is a must, how many years of experience in that industry? If it's a must, and this is a capital M-U-S-T, must. Therefore, you put a must under minimum requirement. But what you don't do is not ask the question, not challenge the hiring manager. What is absolutely critical in this role? Because then what happens if you post the position and you start getting candidates and you're talking to people and you're interviewing, and maybe there's even a face-to-face, but then you're finding out, well, the hiring manager, said no because you don't have the industry experience. Well, heck, if you didn't have the industry experience, it should have been told up front and never put on, and that particular qualification should have been stated on the job. See, we're wasting the recruiter's time. We're wasting your time as a candidate. You're wasting the hiring manager's time because the job was truly not qualified. Salary is another one. Certification's an element. And it's, and there's a big difference between, the bare minimums that you have to have and then the preferred. A lot of times what will happen is that you have to have some really healthy discussions, because a lot of times the hiring manager might say to the recruiter, I'd like to have this, but it's really being masked into these are really musts, and they're just calling it preferred. And again, we're just wasting time. So one of the big mistakes is that, were these jobs qualified? And qualified isn't getting an email, looking it over. It's an actual discussion with the hiring manager, and and it's a robust discussion. What does the best candidate look like to you? What would one look like? Can you pick somebody on LinkedIn? Can you show me a resume that's exactly what you're looking for? See, these are the basics of what recruiters should be doing before that job is even posted, whether it be on LinkedIn, their website, Indeed, wherever it gets posted. Because if that gets messed up, that's why everybody gets frustrated, because these are the basics of recruiting. Now, next thing is, is the recruiter being upfront with you in terms of, are they interviewing internal candidates or not? Oh, it drives me crazy when I hear, well, I went through all the rounds of interviewing and they went with an internal candidate, and it comes to everybody's surprise. Well, recruiters should be upfront with you. Hey, am I going up against internal candidates? Yes or no? And I have my own opinion about this. I think internal candidates should be vetted way before jobs get posted externally. And it's a longer discussion, but at least the recruiter should disclose that to you, so you know that it's a harder dogfight. It's an uphill battle if you're going against internal people, and don't put all your eggs in that basket. And I see that mistake made all the time. Now that's not to say you shouldn't really vie for the job, but the recruiter should be telling you that. And if they don't tell you that, ask them. It can be a lot harder when you're up against internal candidates. Now, I alluded to it, but this is something that recruiters need to do with you right out of the gate. And I know, depending on the laws that are changing, they can't ask you specifically, what was your last salary? Okay, so I get that. But recruiters should be telling you, look, the range for this position, it starts at 100,000, and it goes to 150, 160. The range position starts at 150 and it goes to 200,000, or it starts at 50,000 and it goes to 70. They should give you the range, or at least the starting range. just to make sure we're not wasting everyone's time. This thing of secrecy just drives me crazy. Now, if the recruiter doesn't tell you what that starting range is, then you ask them, what's the range for the role? So that we're not wasting time. I hate to see people go through the entire process and then all of a sudden, well, let's talk about salary. Well, salary is being discussed really at the end of the process when it should have been discussed at the beginning of the process. Any third-party recruiter worth their salt should be asking you that question. And keeping it all hush-hush and quiet, we're not doing anybody any favors. I've heard all the arguments about that. Recruiters need to be telling you, hey, here's the range of the role. And if you don't say anything, then they're going to assume you're okay with that range. But you can't go back at the end of the process and say, well, I didn't know, if they do tell you the range. But if it's something that's completely unacceptable, move on. Go find another person, another employer to interview with. Now, one of the other things that you should find out from a recruiter, and they can tell you this, and you can ask them, hey, what's their role? Are they having, are you working with the hiring manager directly? Ask the recruiter that. They should tell you that. They should also tell you if they're a sourcer. Are they assistant recruiter? Now, a sourcer is somebody that basically finds people and they want to make sure that you're alive and that you date some real basic qualifications. And it might be a 10-minute discussion. And they're going to pass you on to the lead recruiter. And the lead recruiter is the one that has the true relationship with the hiring manager. But, I'm under the frame of mind where just ask, the recruiter could just declare, what role they're playing. And if they have a relationship with the hiring manager or not. And if they don't, kind of declare that. And if they're a sourcer, declare that. If they're a researcher or an assistant to the recruiter, declare that. This level of secrecy, when just make it known where they fit in this cycle. So again, we're not wasting time and creating angst for no reason. Because if you're a sourcer and your whole job is to create paper, validate the paper, and get it to the lead recruiter, who's then going to make a decision of what goes to the hiring manager or not, well, then that's you should be told that up front, not be left in the dark, and then not knowing who's playing what role. There's a couple of questions you should be able to ask the recruiter. The recruiter should be telling you this. But here's the questions you could ask the recruiter. Why is the job open? Really simple. The second question is, hey, what's the number one challenge in the job? Now, they should be really telling you, hey, this is why the position's open. Hey, this is the number one challenge you're going to be faced with. Now, you can meet all the minimum requirements of the job, but I'm talking about very specifically, what's the number one challenge in the job? Or they should be telling you the number one challenge in the job. Now, when a recruiter can't tell you that, they can't say, I don't know what the number one challenge of the job is. That's probably mean they're not talking to the hiring manager. Or if they did talk to the hiring manager, they absolutely didn't qualify the job. Because it's one of the basic questions that you would want to ask a hiring manager to qualify a job so that you're able to tell a potential candidate what that number one challenge is to make sure they're up for the muster or what this job's going to take. It's all part of the qualification process. Now, the other thing a recruiter should be telling you, who does the position report to? I cannot tell you in the last 6 months alone, the people I spoke to, well, I interviewed, and I'll say, well, who does the person report to? I don't know. How do you not know? How can you go on an interview and not be told who the position reports to? How come the recruiter didn't tell you who it reports to? Sometimes it's not stated on a job description, and the recruiter owes you an answer. It should be telling you, so it shouldn't be some secret. It's so fundamental, because if you know who the position reports to, you kind of have an understanding in terms of how to, a way better context of what this role's about and what it's going to take to meet the needs of the person in that particular title. But again, if a recruiter can't tell you who the position reports to, that means they're a sourcer. They're not even the lead recruiter. Now, If they truly don't know who the position reports to because the hiring manager told them we're not sure who it reports to, then at least let them give you that answer. Now, here's the next one. If you're keeping count, this is number 7. And this is so fundamental. And I don't know too many companies that do this, don't know too many recruiters that even do this, but it's something that they should be doing. And this is how simple it gets. When you talk to a recruiter, are they basically telling you, hey, are you part of the first wave of candidates, the second wave of candidates, the third wave of candidates? In other words, are you part of the plan A, B, or C? It's almost like an honesty test of them sharing with you, where do you fit in all this? Now, I did talk to a person this week who the recruiter did say to them, hey, you know what? We love your background, but you're kind of in round B. Round A means people are already scheduled and coming in for interviews. Now, if all that doesn't go well, then we can move you up, but we're not going to move you up because we have people already ahead of you. You know, this is, again, something where I would love to see recruiters do a way better job of explaining where you fit in the whole process. A lot of times you'll say, well, we're interviewing other candidates, when in fact, it's an untruth. You're not interviewing other candidates. Other candidates, you've already picked your round A, and they're in-house interviewing. You might be interviewing people for plan B or plan C, but plan A is already off and running. Ask the recruiter the question if they don't disclose that to you, but they should be disclosing it. And when they don't, it's a mistake. Again, this is number 8, something that recruiters should be telling you, and it's something that creates angst. This is my favorite word this morning, angst, A-N-G-S-T, angst. A recruiter should tell you, here's the expectations regarding timing and communication. Hey, we just had this interview. It's going to take me 2 or 3 days to talk to a few other people. I'm going to let you know on Friday. I'm going to let you know next week. I'm going to let you know next Friday. But a recruiter has a responsibility of setting the timing with you. And it drives me crazy when I see recruiters just say, well, thanks, we'll be in touch. That means nothing. We'll be in touch. They should be telling you, setting some parameters of when we're going to be in touch. So are we days away, weeks away, months away? And recruiters don't tell you that. You need to challenge and ask the recruiter at the end of the interview and write it down and then hold them accountable. Number 9, at the beginning of an interview, a recruiter should say, hey, we have 15 minutes for this interview. We have 30 minutes. I set aside 20 minutes. But for them not to tell you is unacceptable. They need to let you know. Why do they need to let you know? To make sure that the best of your story is told in the allotted time. If you think you have 30 minutes and the recruiter's wrapping things up in 10 minutes, and you only got 2 points of 10 out, the only person that loses, well, there's a lot of people that lose in that. The recruiter loses because they think they've nailed they're not nailing anything because they don't know anything about you because they set the time and you thought you had way more time. The fact of the matter is, everybody loses there. The recruiter thinks they know you. They don't know you. You think you're giving them your best pitch, but you didn't get your whole story out, all because expectations weren't set in terms of how long the interview is going to be. This seems so fundamental, but a mistake is made all the time. Tied to that same mistake is another one. Recruiters that are really good should interrupt you and get good at interrupting the people that they're talking to. Not to be rude, but if you're a recruiter worth your salt, you're going to have 5 questions lined up, maybe 10 questions, 7 questions lined up. And if I'm going to spend 30 minutes with you on a phone screen or an hour interview, I'm going to get through all 10. I want 10 answers. I don't want 2 answers. And if you get long-winded and you start talking and go on for 1, 2, 3 questions, and now we're just about out of time, again, the recruiter should have interrupted you. Hey, I know you can give me more. There's more I need to get through here because I want to get all of you and I want to get a good sampling of who you are. The recruiters just let you run. Yeah, I can make an argument. Yeah, you're making a mistake by running too long. But also recruiters who are good will interrupt you so that they hear other parts of you and can fill those all of those 7 or 10 questions out. to get answers about you versus just giving a snippet of who you are. Here's another one. It's a hot button. Not that they're all hot buttons, but here's one where recruiters aren't honest with you. I was a recruiter. And let me tell you something. It takes a little bit of mettle to be honest with candidates, but honesty starts with meeting the mins. Honesty starts where qualifying a job. Honesty starts with telling you, you know what, you're not a fit. A lot of times what will happen is that recruiters, they know you're not a fit, but instead of telling you you're not a fit, well, you know what, let's see how things go. And they tell you that when it's a right out lie. Hey, they have other people way more qualified. You're missing these 5 things. You sound like a really good person, but you know what? It's probably not going to be the fit for this particular role. They won't tell you that. And I can remember as a recruiter, I told somebody one time they're not a fit. Oh, were they mad at me? To this day, they're probably still mad at me. But you know what? Way better to be respected as a recruiter than liked, because respected says you get an honest answer. And I know a few people, God love them, they're pretty right out. They'll tell right to you, yes or no, and this is why. Those are good things. But the recruiters who don't tell you outright, it's a big mistake. Now we're down to just 2 more. Here's one that if recruiters don't do, it's just a horrible practice. I would say it's the number one issue recruiters get dinged with, and that's communication once an interview takes place. There are some recruiters that I know, the really, really good ones, where once they engage you in an interview, you kind of go on the blackboard, your name's written. Once a week, Friday afternoon, you get an update, no matter what. No matter what, you get an update. Things have slowed down, they've stopped, you're running, you're on plan B, whatever it is, but you get an update. And if you don't get that update, it's a failure on the recruiter's part. And I don't want to hear any of the excuses when you interview and recruiters stop communicating with you. And I can see having a bad week, but I did an entire radio program last year on this topic. What happens when recruiters go silent? But if they had a best practice in place, they should be communicating with, hey, every Friday I'll let you know where things stand. And it's a quick text message, LinkedIn message, an email, whatever it might be, but it doesn't have to be something robust. But if they don't do that, they're failing as recruiters. Now, and here's the last one, which I'm going to conclude with. People who are really good recruiters, if the answer is no, my challenge to recruiters, when you talk to them, what else are they going to do for you other than saying, hey, we'll keep an eye out at our website, keep an eye out for other jobs, and we're going to keep you in our database. That's the robotic answer that all recruiters are trained to say so they can just move on to the next person to talk to. I would make an argument. What else can they do to help you because you're in job search, you're in need, you're out of work? They're not, you are, to step up their game and help the people. How about, hey, why don't you connect with me on LinkedIn? Hey, here's a resource to go to. Hey, here's a career coach you probably want to talk to. Hey, here's somebody that can help you improve your resume. What else hey, here's somebody to go to help maybe save you some money. Anything other than we're going to see you, we're going to keep you in mind in our database. That's after you spend an hour into doing whatever. There's another challenge. Hey, there's 13 problems that I see. There's many, many more. And hopefully you can use this as a checklist to hold your recruiters that you're talking to, whether they be third party, retained search consultants, internal recruiters, accountable in doing a good job. And maybe, that's your own checklist. It's a two-way street. Just remember that. So listen, we're just about out of time. And for those of you new to the program, I did publish my first book at the end of 2019 called Optimize Your Resume, Do's and Don'ts, the Sam Nova Way. It's available now on our website for $20, and it includes shipping. Just go to our website. We also updated our website recently. In fact, I think we just hit this will be 33 radio broadcast programs that we've done, and each of these programs are turned into a podcast. And we have them on our website. You could also find them on 1180 AM WFYL's website as well. So Sam Nova, if you want to get to the Sam Nova website, it's www.sam, like Uncle Sam, SAM, Nova, like the star, NOVAINC.com. That's samnovainc.com. Well over 350 positive comments about my book to date. And probably the most common thing that you'll hear is that the book's practical, Ed. It's step by step. And I've gotten, I can't tell you, countless comments about the book, helping people with more interviews. And that's half the battle. So please follow me on LinkedIn. It's Ed Samuel, Career Coach. I'll come up near the top of Google search. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I'll be speaking publicly in a few weeks in Pittsburgh and at Wharton University. So I'm looking forward to that. If you follow me on LinkedIn, you'll see those posts. Also have a Twitter account. So join me on our next Optimize Your Career program. This is Ed Samuel, Career Coach with Sam Nova. If you'd like to reach me with any questions or comments, you can email me at esamuel, ESAMUEL, at samnovainc.com, SAMNOVAINC.com. Our main number is 610-274-8214. Hey, make it a great weekend and God bless.